Hi, I'm Sam Smith. Pull up a seat. The conversations are just about to begin on App TV's Sports Bar. Thanks for joining us again this week. We've got a lot to talk about this week, and I felt a draft or something in this room somewhere, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And let's go with our regulars, and we've got the regular crew with us. Aston Slaughter is with us today, also Chris Warner, and at the end is Travis Stanley. Glad to have you aboard. And the draft behind us comes from the NBA and the National Hockey League, and the NBA draft. First of all, anybody want to kind of kick us off here? Good, bad, and different? Was it a good draft, bad draft? What do you think? Anybody?
It was a good draft. I mean, you had a lot of talent coming in, and as usual in the NBA draft, there were some picks that people agreed with, some picks that people didn't agree with so much. Karl Anthony Towns going at 1 was pretty, I think, expected. Yeah. No one was really shocked when he was taken.
By the way, they were 3 for 3 on Towns, by the way, so congratulations.
And I think that most of the controversy came in with, the Hornets pick and, of course, with Porzingis getting taken. So I think
New York?
Yes, of course. So I think that there's a little bit to talk about here.
When you take a look at that, the 6 players from Kentucky, let's get that out of the way first of all. Do we just have a draft and just go to Kentucky and pick their top players every year? Is that what we do, Chris?
I think it's becoming a pretty regular thing. They bring in the top recruits every single year. It's not something that's going to end anytime soon. I don't know that we'll consistently see guys go number 1 as Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, guys like that have. But we'll keep seeing these guys in the top 10. They get the best athletes in the nation. And they've built that reputation for themselves. So the guys that don't want to stay in college, that want to go to the pros and make the money, know, hey, go get to Kentucky and then you get to the NBA. So
Towns was not a surprise. One of the Kentucky players, 6'11", went to Minnesota. A little bit of controversy going on in the second pick, however, Travis, and the fact was it going to be Okafor or was it going to be Russell, a point guard? And the Lakers went with Russell. They've got a little different look out there now.
Well, I agreed with the Lakers pick. In my opinion, I think Russell has the higher upside. I think in many ways he will translate to the league much quicker, and I think he'll be a great player for them. However, Okafor is a player that can really score the ball. In the case of Philadelphia, I don't necessarily think Okafor was the pick they needed, but they were in a situation where they took best player available, and that's what they have been doing the past few seasons, until they get their whatever they have going on in Philadelphia figured out. In their rebuilding process.
Well, the numbers in Philadelphia obviously have not been good over the years, so Okafor is going to have to be maybe the savior a little bit at Philadelphia if he tries to get anything going. That, of course, brought up the New York pick, and, of course, it was one of those that I guess anytime you had this going on, even though the draft was down somewhere else, it happened to be a situation where you're going to get booed in New York probably no matter who you pick. Yeah. But they get one of the players, again, another one of these foreign players. Are they good? Are they bad for the NBA? We can talk about that all day. But Winslow was out there, a few other top players. Your thoughts on that pick?
Everybody wants to hate on the Knicks and hate on the pick. But, when you see D'Angelo Russell go off the board, Towns was off the board, and Okafor off the board, those were really the can't-miss prospects of this draft. And so when you get to 4, I think the Knicks did the right thing and took the best available player. People have been raving about the upside that Porzingis potentially has. The problem is that it's a few years off. And so for the Knicks, does it necessarily make sense in the win-now sense when you have Carmelo Anthony under contract? Maybe not. But this is someone who's been talked about. His upside is potentially Dirk Nowitzki. And I would say that pretty much any team in the league would take Dirk Nowitzki on, developing that player once again. And so I think the Knicks... it's going to be something that shows up a few years out, but they kind of helped with getting Jerry Grant later on in the draft, a point guard who can come in and play immediately.
Notre Dame player.
Yep, absolutely.
Good shooter.
Yep. Well, I agree with you with the Grant pick. However, I do not agree with you with the Porzingis pick. You mentioned Dirk. If he turns into, Dirk, that's great. That is terrific. But we don't know that. Yeah. And, you mentioned, Carmelo. He's a guy who has maybe 3 more years in his prime. Yeah. Porzingis may not even develop into a player in that amount of time. So for the Knicks, in my opinion, I think they would have been much better served taking a much more polished player, a player who can step in and actually contribute. Even a Kaminsky like the Hornets took, I feel like even him would have been a better pick for the Knicks.
Him or Willie Cauley-Stein, I could have seen that too. I wouldn't have minded seeing Willie Cauley-Stein. He's a young big man. I mean, the thing about Porzingis though is that offensively his game isn't going to have to change too much to fit into the NBA. It's going to be defensively. He's a good shot blocker, but can he be a shot blocker against post game in the NBA? And that remains to be seen. But I definitely don't hate the Knicks pick as much as seemingly the rest of America or the world there.
We're not going to look at all of the picks from each of the teams, so let's slide right into what the Hornets did. And again, they go with a player that quite obviously he elected to stay one more year at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It paid off, getting all the way into the finals and an opportunity to win a national championship. And Kaminsky shoots the ball well. I don't think he's a real athlete right now. I think he's a very good player. And does he add to the Hornets what they need to get over the hump? They were 10 away from a playoff, 10 games away from a playoff this past year. Is he a 10-game guy that can get him over the hump? Addison?
That's rough. I know that they're getting a lot of, controversy around their pick and everything. And for me, it wasn't even the pick itself. It was the choice not to take the trade that they were offered by the Celtics.
6 players?
6 picks.
Six picks, I'm sorry.
4 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks.
Ooh.
Which, I mean, I know it's not like the NFL where, that's kind of...
The pick.
Yeah, the pick's the pick no matter what. There's a lot of conditions. But, I mean, that's a lot of picks for a team that, I think could use a lot of new blood to really get where they need to go. So
I think one of those picks was, 2036, I think.
Yeah, exactly. 2036 pick. There's just a lot of question marks surrounding Frank Kaminsky, and so he's going to be under the microscope because of that, because of the trade getting floated out there, which I think was Danny Ainge, the GM for the Boston Celtics. It's kind of his way to save face because he had made it known that he wanted to trade into the top 10 and wasn't able to do that. And so I think him floating that out there is a little shot at especially the Hornets, who it sounds like they had something going on. And so that's going to put him under the microscope. But this isn't a pick that they're expecting to come in and be a huge contributor immediately.
Oh, yeah.
In the NFL, the number 9 overall pick expected to be a contributor. But outside of the top 5 in the NBA, not all these teams expect that immediate presence. And the Hornets have already gone out and gotten Nicholas Batum this offseason. They went and gotten Jeremy Lamb, who's a bit of an unknown, but still shooters, Spencer Hawes. And so he has room to kind of grow into this role and not be thrust in and say, we need you to play 30 minutes and we need you to play lights out. He can grow into that role. And I think long-term trajectory, he has a great career ahead of him.
Travis, one of the things also about Kaminsky is the fact that he's an excellent passer. And when you've got Al Jefferson, healthy Al Jefferson on the inside, it creates a nice, we always call it the triangle defense if you've got a shooting guard, and I understand they're working very hard. Stevenson is gone in the trade now, kind of a troublemaker in the locker room. So they feel they're getting a little better there. Gerald Henderson is gone as well. So now they're trying to cultivate another third person to be in that triangle. Kaminsky could be that guy for Jefferson, make him even better.
Well, I sure hope he can be that player. I agree with you. I see him being possibly a very good passer in this league. Obviously, he can really stretch the floor. He can shoot. And, I can possibly see a lineup where, theoretically, they should never get out-rebounded.
Yeah.
Because you could have 3 guys who were right at 7 foot tall, on the floor at the same time in those forward positions. But looking back at the pick, to me, with Spencer Hawes, getting him before the draft, I don't think the Kaminsky pick really makes a ton of sense. Now, they're not the exact same player. I feel like Kaminsky is more athletic than Hawes, but they're both guys who hover right around 7 foot tall, can shoot the ball. And Hawes is probably going to play the 4, Kaminsky at the 3, but I feel like they're maybe too close to the same player. I would have rather them have gotten Winslow at 9, but that's just me. But at the same time, Winslow is not a proven shooter to me. And shooting overall is something they needed more than anything else.
Winslow goes next to Miami, and quite obviously a good pickup for Miami, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think they were excited when they found out that he fell to them. I don't think they were expecting it, and so I think it was kind of a nice little surprise for them. I think their marketing department's really excited about it as well.
I thought one of the best of the shooters coming out, Phoenix got him, and of course it was Devin Booker, another one of those Kentucky freshmen. This kid can shoot the ball. I think Phoenix, with their run and gun offense, I think this kid could really shine.
Yep. And they're pairing him with Brandon Knight, which is also a great shooter. He got a contract extension today. I think it was 5 years, $70 million they announced. And so when you pair those two together, it's Golden State's kind of set the precedent that you need guys who can shoot the lights out, and that pair of guards that can shoot the way that Klay Thompson or Curry can. Obviously, Curry is potentially one of the best shooters we've ever seen, but if you can try to mimic that to some extent, you're going to win games. And they've shown they can do it in the West, where defenses are pretty formidable. So.
Let me throw another couple of names out to you, and I thought a couple of Cameron Payne, the point guard from Murray State, goes to Oklahoma City. Kind of helps Westbrook and of course Durant as well, or Durant, I'm sorry. And it's going to be a good situation in Oklahoma City, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that they needed a couple of strong guys, and now they've got it. So, I think in general, the draft gave everyone what they wanted. I think that every team kind of picked up what they needed at the moment. So.
And Houston got one of my favorites in Decker, the young man from Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
I think he made Kaminsky a better player, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think Houston, too, another pick that's kind of not getting talked about is they picked up Montrezl Harrell of Louisville in the second round, early in the second round. And he's an energy player. He's a guy whose game really translates to the NBA. He's a bit undersized, and work ethic here or there, he has some issues with it off the court. But when he gets in there, I mean, he's an energy player. Put back dunks, huge rebounds on the offensive end. His game reminds me a lot of Tristan Thompson's early game. And we've seen how Tristan Thompson has come into his own this year, and honestly last year as well, but this year for the most part.
I would say Montrezl Harrell has a long way to go. I never really liked his game in college. That's just because I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
If you don't have a polished game, what are you? You're no longer a basketball player. You're an athlete on the basketball floor. So, he might develop into that kind of player. The NBA loves drafting on potential. That's about all they do anymore. But we'll see. I think he may develop into it.
But he's got Dwight Howard to be under, who I wouldn't say that Dwight Howard is my favorite big man by any means, but putting him down there with him, Josh Smith, and Terrence Jones, there's no pressure to really come in and compete immediately. And for Houston, he's a second-round pick, so the contract's not guaranteed. So if they don't like what they see, oh well, you move on.
The Sun Belt, Hunter gets an opportunity to play in the National Basketball Association. It's good for the conference, good for ASU.
Yep, absolutely. RJ Hunter, great shooter. And like I said, going back to Golden State's kind of set the precedent. You need shooters, and you can't have enough of them. And I think the Boston Celtics have about 8 or 9 guards on the roster right now, so they're figuring out what guys they want to keep. But RJ Hunter is, if nothing else, he's a great spot-up shooter, and you need that in the league. Even if he just is somebody who comes off the bench, he was a later pick. It's not like I said, there's no expectation for him to be the guy, but to be part of the system.
So it's the splash triplets now.
Yeah.
Is that what is at the Golden State there? Any goods and bads you around? Anybody like someone doing well and someone not doing well in the draft?
I love the Minnesota Timberwolves draft. And it's not just Karl Anthony Towns. I love the pick of Tyus Jones. I was a little bitter that the Cavaliers actually traded the pick. They had him at 24, and then I was celebrating it. I even posted on Twitter. I was like, what a great pick. And then shortly, about 2 minutes later, he was traded. So, but I think it's a great pick because he's from Minnesota, so a Minnesota native, goes home. He won a national championship this year. He's a great leader, and honestly, he's clutch. And that's something you really can't teach. It's one thing coming out of college. He just made huge shots in the tournament over and over and over again. And people want to talk about Jahlil Okafor, but Tyus Jones was a big reason they won that national championship as well. And so I think it's a great pick for them to go along with Karl Anthony Towns and the young guys like Wiggins they already have on the roster. And it gives them insurance because Rubio is the key to that offense, and he's been hurt over and over again. So it's if Rubio gets hurt again, they're no longer left with an empty cupboard to pick from.
Anybody have a bad draft? Stand out.
Well, outside of the Knicks, I'm going to put them over here to their own selves because I think that was terrible.
Yeah.
But Cauley Stein going 6 to the Kings.
Yeah. Hate it.
I don't see it, and he may develop into a terrific player. I see him, at the top end, just being a very elite defender and being a guy that can really just rip down rebounds. I don't see him developing into much of an offensive player. And I just feel like he was way overvalued. At 6, I don't, in my opinion, there's no way he was the 6th best player in this draft.
What's happening with LeBron James? I mean, this is a guy that all of a sudden is talking about getting out of a contract. Why is he trying to talk about getting out of contract at Cleveland? Or is it smoke?
Yeah, it's smoke.
Is it smoke?
The cap's going up. He wants more money, He knows how good he is. He knows that they're going to give it to him to keep him, so.
He's worth it, isn't he?
I think so. I think that there's some talk that maybe he's not quite as worth it after the finals and everything. I think people are saying, well, maybe you should hold off a little bit, don't increase it all the way, but he'll get the money he wants. He'll stay where he is.
Quick note on Cleveland. Did they get any help? Anybody that's going to help them?
In the draft, not really. They got a player that they're going to stash overseas for now as far as for contract reasons, but they picked up Raheem Christmas from Syracuse, who really when he first started at Syracuse, his game wasn't that impressive, but he really rounded it out towards the end of the year. He was a co-defensive player of the year. I mean, it's a good pickup, but they're not expecting him to contribute. They moved into the second round to get non-guaranteed contracts so that they have room to shill out about $80 million in free agency.
Yeah.
So LeBron got a little extra, early prize.
Yeah.
And present, right? Yeah.
Yep.
From Christmas. Okay. The draft is, as a matter of fact, it's coming from this side now. And it's the National Hockey League. And I don't think there was a lot of surprise. The top 2 picks in the National Hockey League. Was it a deep draft this year? A lot of people are saying wasn't bad.
Yeah. Overall, they said it was a very deep draft this year. The team that I really wanted to talk about is the Buffalo Sabres. They picked Jack Eichel, the number 2 overall pick. This was the worst team in the league last year statistically. In the standings, they were the worst. They picked second because of the way the lottery plays out, and we all know about how that goes. The Knicks sadly know how that goes. So they were the worst team. And not only did they get Jack Eichel, who's going to be the face of the franchise, they also went out and traded for Ryan O'Reilly from the Colorado Avalanche. He's a number 1 center coming into Buffalo. He wasn't in Colorado because they have some depth. But coming into Buffalo, he'll be the number 1 guy. They picked up a goalie, all using first-round picks that they just moved around. And even going back, they started the year with 3 first-round picks. They used one of them at the trade deadline to pick up Evander Kane, who is also a great young scoring wing.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Sabres went from being one of the worst teams to potentially an 8 seed in the playoffs after this weekend.
Wasn't much of a surprise in the number 1 pick with Edmonton and the Oilers.
No way.
O'Connor?
You don't,
McDavid, I'm sorry.
you don't
McDavid.
pass on
Connor
him.
McDavid,
You do
yeah.
not pass on him. He
Yeah.
was the prize of the draft.
Yeah. Anybody have a good overall better draft than you've already mentioned a couple there? Anybody that kind of stunk, so to speak?
I'm really a fan of the Canes. I think that picking Hannafin was a really good choice on their part.
Good defenseman from Boston College, yeah.
Definitely. I think that from a negative standpoint, though, the Bruins, I don't know what they were doing. They had 3 picks in a row. They had, I believe, 16, 17, and 18.
13, 14, 15.
Oh, even
Yep.
higher. And, they had a chance to really take, maybe a risky guy and 2 real stable guys. And they picked 3 guys out of nowhere that, I think they're very boomer bust, but I think there's a way bigger chance at being a bust. And I'm not even going to try with the names because I haven't checked how you pronounce them, and they're tough ones. But I just think that they really wasted an opportunity to add some true talent to the team and went for these guys that, may pan out, but there's a good chance they're not going to.
They made a trade also to get a goaltender with Cam Ward's contract now, probably going to be expired and out now with the Hurricanes. But they came in, and of course they have Eddie Lack coming in, and this is a pretty good goaltender. That's not a bad guy to get up.
Yep, this is the offseason to really go out and get backup, like guys who are in a situation where there's a great established goalie. A lot of backups now are able to leave. They left, and now they're going to other teams to get a chance to start. Like I said, the Sabres got Robin Lehner. Cam Talbot, who was the backup in New York, was on the move. Eddie Lack. So you're seeing guys. It'll be interesting to see this year how these guys get a chance to step up when it's on their shoulders. And there's a lot of guys who moved around. I think it was like at least 3, maybe 4 goaltenders that are going to be switching spots here. So it'll be
Actually,
interesting
the
to
trades
see.
in the National Hockey League, I was looking at trades in the NBA, and there were a great number of those, but the National Hockey League just dwarfed them in a number of trades. I mean, there were a lot of movement going on, so going to be different personalities going to emerge when we see the fall come up with the National Hockey League. But a good draft for them, 2 top players that went along with several others, and of course the Hurricanes. Yes or no? Did they improve themselves? Well, the only time will tell over in Raleigh. 100%. And by the way, if you have not been to a hockey game over in Raleigh, the Hurricane games, it's quite a fun affair. Just go over and enjoy. If you've never seen the National Hockey League, and if you've watched college hockey, it's a very good hockey, but you get the National Hockey League, there's no comparison. I mean, the speed, the talent, the roughness. And of course, they'll still drop the gloves and let's get after it. So it's a situation where if you have not been over to Raleigh to see the Hurricanes, you certainly should make your effort to get over there. The women's soccer team continues to win, but do they win well enough now to move into the semifinals against Germany?
I think there's gonna be a struggle against Germany. I think that if we keep playing at the intensity and the speed that we're playing, we're not going to win. We're going to get blown away. And I really hope that when you add Rapinoe and Holiday back into the mix after their double yellow cards have, been taken off, I hope that we'll see a different team. But I think that overall, it's just we're not playing with what we need to beat Germany. I think that China, we got lucky. We're a bigger team. We're more athletic. And I think that we're lucky that they fell to us. But if we play like we did against China, we are not going to win. I think they need more cohesiveness. They need to work together. They need to get the ball in the box to Morgan. They need to work as a unit and not this, oh, here, let me pass you the ball, you take it.
Yeah.
Oh, here, let me pass you the ball, you take it. They're working too individually to really show the team that they have and to show the strengths that they've got.
Travis, is it going to have to play better defense against Germany, or are you just going to have an offense that scores?
Well, I think it's the latter because the defense has been terrific all tournament. They haven't had any creativity in the final third. With this past game, with Rapinoe being out and Holiday, those are two, of some of your best playmakers, if not your best playmakers on that team. So that will help going into the Germany game. But as an offense, I got to get on the same page. Too many balls, let's work that 1-2, and it's played here, and, it should have been here. And I don't know if you can fix that on the training ground leading up to the game or, how you fix that. But if they don't, they will lose to Germany. In my opinion, there's no doubt about that. That Germany-France game, the semifinal, we were talking about it off air, that looked like a final. I mean, that was a game worthy of a final. It went to PKs, and even then, it was 5-4 on PKs. So I guess time will tell, and we'll see. But certainly they need to get it together in order to have a chance to compete
tomorrow in
against
Montreal
Germany.
should be fun. Other semifinal, any surprises there? Is it Japan and England getting in?
Yeah, well, to me, there's no surprise as far as Japan winning. Australia was a quality team, but Japan, they're coming off a World Cup win in 2011. They play so cohesive. They are everything that the United States isn't right now. So we'll see how that plays out. England, I think they feel lucky to be here. They were playing Canada, where either one of those teams making the semifinal was kind of going to be a gift because Canada in the women's game isn't a pushover, but they're not elite. So England, I think, is just happy to be here. I was listening to some English radio broadcasters who were just touching on the women's team on the way over here, and essentially the feeling I got was, we have a women's team, So I don't feel like anyone really cares over there. It'll take them winning the World Cup for them to have relevance.
Having traveled over to Europe quite a bit, and during the World Cup activity, you go to any restaurant anywhere in Europe, and what's on TV? That's going to be, if their team's playing or not. And the waiters are kind of serving you by doing this. They're kind of watching the TV. But it's quite an affair over there. They really love their football in Europe, and it is interesting. But it's interesting the English people say, we have a women's team? That's it. Hey, how about the first ever national championship for the Cavaliers of Virginia, winning the Baseball World Series, beating Vanderbilt? Well, I actually had picked to be one of the top contenders going into this thing. I made it all the way to the finals, but it goes 3 games. But Virginia, this is quite a deal, particularly since they were runner-ups last year. This is quite a rebound for these guys.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. It was great to see them rally the way they did. I mean, losing early on in the series and then just coming back the way they did. Next game, shutout. They win in a shutout. The next game, they dominate and win 4-2. It's great to see the resiliency in that team and getting the monkey off your back. You lost to that team last year in the World Series. You made it all the way back, and you weren't going to lose again.
Yeah.
You just decided that that's not how it was going to end, and they fought and they won. And it's great to see for someone who is a marginal college baseball fan like myself. Just that's a team that you can pick and root for.
What do you think? Coach there, Brian O'Connor, said nobody expected us to do anything. Is that something that kind of motivates guys, you think, in the locker room, or is it kind of a turnoff?
Oh, yeah. No, I think that little bit of, no one's expecting this from you, so give it to them is, it gives you that little bit of kind of like, I want to show everyone what I can do and, that we can be this team that, people, don't think we can be or whatnot. And, I mean, I think that in general, it goes back to the coach a lot for this team. I think that they pulled out the fire, and I think that goes to coaching. And I just wish I could be in that locker room on the last game, listening to him pep them up. I just can't even imagine what he said to give them everything that they had for that game. So I think that they deserved it, but I think he was right that people weren't exactly expecting it, and that made it, I think, a little bit sweeter for him.
I don't know, though, because you're talking about a team that was just in the World Series last year. Yeah. So the College World Series last year. So how can you say there's no expectations? I mean, you once you get there,
from the outside there was none.
Yeah.
Inside you kind of
absolutely.
By the way, that broke a drought of 60 years of the ACC winning a World Series championship.
Well, congratulations.
So that was a kind of. By the way, ASU, of course, is now moving into the Sun Belt, And if you have not seen any notes on Sunbelt baseball, they're going to have some really good competition. This is going to be fun to watch Sunbelt baseball with ASU. Final note before we get out of here on our last take, a young man, 392 games without an error. All of a sudden, Atlanta's right fielder goes, oops, bobble the ball, gets an error. 398 games he goes without making an error.
It's bound to happen. Errors happen in baseball. I really don't have much more to say than that. As long as you don't string them together, you'll still be remembered as a great player. It was a great streak, but can't last forever.
And again, it was a bobble, let the runner advance to second base, and quite obviously, error is an error, even be bobbled or not. Baseball season, of course, is getting heated up. We're going to be talking about who's hot and who's not. And, of course, the All-Star game coming up in July. Do you like the All-Star game? The winner gets the home field in the World Series?
Doesn't seem too fair to me, in my opinion.
I personally, I love it.
Really?
I don't know how much time we have,
Yeah.
but I think it adds, importance to the All-Star game, and it's the most entertaining All-Star game.
Okay, well,
we
you
have
guys
in
fight it
professional
out over
sports.
there. Yeah. Fight it out over there. That's the way we're going to do that. That about wraps us up for this week's Sports Bar. But before we go, let me remind you and invite you to, tell us about your comments by contacting us at www.watchapptv.com. And until next time, again, for all of our great hosts, thanks, and we appreciate it very much. We thank you for joining us here on the Sports Bar. Until next week, so long, everybody. Have a good week.